It's the Central Weekly, a weekly podcast from the Central Podcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got myself, Jared LaCrone, and that's right, we have 3 co-hosts for episode 88 of the Central Weekly. If you were on site or you watched here on site here in Mount Vernon, we had Family Worship Weekend. So that means the old one guy on the stage talking about the Bible was not good enough. No, we had all the students. We had a fun weekend, and that meant we had Phoebe Ile, Elisha Smith, and Pacey Reynolds talking about their ministries and how God is moving in their ministry. So that means they are the co-hosts for the episode. Guys, say hi.
Hello. Hey.
What up?
So here's the deal. You guys haven't been on the podcast in quite some time. All
Not
3
for a
of
while.
you. It's been a little bit. So, but you're familiar with the Central Weekly because you watch it. You listen every week. I know.
I do
For
listen,
sure.
actually.
See, yeah. There's a little hesitation in that, Phoebe. But here's the cool thing is we're recording this prior to Family Worship Weekend. So your things and fun things and things that you're going to say, I have no idea what that is. But we're going to have fun in this episode because a lot of you, Phoebe's not new, Alicia's not new, but Pacey's new to this pastor thing.
Yep.
And I'm excited to hear your perspective. I'm excited to get some caught up on what's been going in Kid Depot because a lot's been going on. And I now have a middle schooler. So this is just going to be a lot of fun. We're going to share some updates, share some stories, get some highlights, maybe even some challenges, some stressors that you guys too go through as pastors because I like this weekend because it gives you guys a voice to the congregation as a whole. Because you guys do so much pouring into your students on a weekly basis. It's nice to kind of give, hey, this is what's going on with our kids that are in your areas. And it's always funny. People always say the future generation. It's the generation. It's just a different generation right now. Like we're all like, it's happening all right now. What do you guys ever struggle with that? Like the future generation talk?
Yeah, because I think sometimes we think that kids will contribute later when they actually contribute right now. So very true.
I mean, you have Gen A in your ministry. I mean, I keep up on the generations. Gen Z is pretty much on its way out at this point of our ministry. We're entering into Gen A, which is crazy. Jared, your kid's Gen A, I think.
I don't even know what you're talking
Gen
about.
A, not Forrest Gump Jenny, but like
Gen A?
Generation A.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah, it's Gen A. They talked about it at one of our summer things. I was like, I didn't even know that they were up next, which is just scary.
Gen Z is you? What are you?
Yes, I'm the top end of Gen Z.
Uh-huh. And then that ends at what, 2000?
Apparently it ends in 7th graders would be the last Gen Z kids. The next one would be Gen A. Maybe there's somewhere in between there, but
well,
I
Eric
feel like
is our resident. I wonder if he's still keeping up on it.
I don't
Eric, like he's done podcasts on this in Leading Young when that was a podcast.
Yeah.
When that was a thing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go a little bit, I want to talk personal stuff. That sounds weird to say that, but just a little bit about what you guys, your family, because some people might not know who you guys are, especially because we've had so many new people come into Central. I think it's important for them to know the leaders and the shepherds of the flocks around here. So we're going to get shepherdy. Are you ready? So let's start with, I always feel like I have to start with the youngest, not you, the youngest age level, but Phoebe Ile, Kid Depot. Now you said something. How long have you been in Kid Depot as a staff member?
Going on year 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember that conversation, that phone call.
Your wife hired me into Kid Depot. Yeah.
But so going down to 10 years, and now as children's pastor, how long has that been?
Oh, that's been since 2019.
Okay.
So that's when I transitioned from leading kindergarten through 2nd grade to being children's pastor. So it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
Coming up on 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. A little bit about you. Tell us about kind of where you grew up. I think a lot of people know this, but where you grew up and your family life.
Yeah. Grew up right here in Mount Vernon. Been at Central since I was a middle school student. So a very long time. Married to Trevor, who's also a pastor here. He's our family ministries pastor. 2 kids, 2 boys. They keep us busy. But
What grades are they in now?
2nd and kindergarten.
Yeah, I thought
which
we
is
shared
crazy.
that in common. Yeah.
Yep, 2nd and kindergarten. But yeah, that's about me.
Big sports family.
Yes, whether I like it or not, we are a big sports family.
Now, growing up, Phoebe, you probably weren't a big sports family. Right?
I've always been surrounded by sports. Like my dad is very much into baseball, all the things. So like
That's
sports
nothing new.
radio was always on. Yeah, very, very familiar.
Yeah, Dan Reagan's an avid Cubs fan.
Yes,
and that's
he
why
is.
one of the reasons why I love Dan Reagan.
Yes.
So I mean that's the cool thing. All 3 of you grew up in these student ministries that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Isn't that awesome?
I hope that's a point that John makes. I think he's going to. But it's just, I mean, that's what the church is. It's a bunch of generations all pointed towards loving God and loving people in such a way that you guys are now bringing in that leadership role.
I don't know how they got me here, but
We don't know
they
either.
did it.
We're going to, hopefully that's the mystery we're going to
hopefully
solve in
we're
this
gonna figure
podcast.
that out.
But Phoebe, so now within your job structure, you've got a lot of changes
Yeah,
that have
a
kind of
ton.
been rolling around. I've got this lady named Ashton hanging out with me, doing a lot of communication stuff. So once she kind of left that area with Kid Depot, how have you filled those gaps? And again, tell us a little bit about the structure now in Kid Depot.
Yeah, we've been restructuring a little bit just because we are experiencing a lot of growth, which means it just comes with some changes and some growing pains. So we've kind of been like reevaluating what's the best way to structure our Kid Depot staff so that we can be most equipped moving forward. So we kind of put, so we have 3 people in elementary now. And so that is Katie Newell, Autumn Ziegler, and Macy Farley.
Yep.
And then we have Amber Crawford is our pre-K director, but we also have 2 people that help her on the weekends, which is Patty Rocket and Fisher Davis, and then myself, obviously. So.
I think when that came across, that model seems more sustainable for the long run.
That's what we're hoping. We kind of had to get creative, and it took like some brainstorming to
Yeah.
come up with the right structure. But we're hoping that this will be obviously able to help us on the weekends, but just,
And
be
like
more
you said,
sustainable.
not all of those are full time. No. That's a big thing.
Only 3 are full time. Yeah.
And so, it reminds me of 10 years ago when Maria kind of came up with that structure on, hey, how can we grow for this? And then a lot of those were part-timers under her, but then they all naturally kind of grew into full-time. And now I just think we've hit another, I don't want to say plateau, but we've hit another barrier that we needed to figure out how we're going to grow with these kids. Because how many kids on the weekend on average are with pre-K? I'm sorry, I didn't prep you for this.
No, you
to
didn't.
5th grade.
We are seeing over 300 kids per weekend.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you look at that percentage of that. We say maybe 2,000 on site. 300 of those are that age.
And that's like averaging, so that can fluctuate, obviously. And that's typically just kids that have attended like one service. That's not even including kids that attend multiple services.
And we are, we do that a lot in the Lacron family. We attend multiple services.
Yeah, that number comes from Breeze, which is our database system. So it's telling us how many people checked in for the weekend. So we just take there's over 300 kids that check in per weekend.
I mean, and physically, the building's been changing over there in Kid Depot because you've kind of rearranged some things in order to add more classrooms.
Yes.
So really, you added 2 brand new classrooms in that hallway,
Yeah.
and then was able to restructure how the nursery looks, the 1-year-old room, so then that could accommodate a separate room. How often are you using that room in there?
The one that's
that extra room that was added between those 2 spots.
Unfortunately, we're not getting to use it a lot right now because we need more people to man
Staff. That makes sense.
We need some more volunteers. And actually, the dream for that classroom is that it could kind of be a hub of special needs ministry for Kid Depot. So as soon as we can find people to be best equipped for that, that's what the hope is for that.
Yeah. So here's my questions. I'm going to keep a couple of these discussion points similar between the 3 of you. Okay. So my first one for you, give me probably your biggest highlight over the last year in Kid Depot. That can involve a story. That can involve probably because I don't know how else you tell that. But maybe because we, as we know, relationships matter most. So tell us, a story about how relationships matter most, and maybe that can become your highlight.
I think what's really, really neat in the last couple of years is that we are seeing a lot of new families. And I know that that's not just Kid Depot only, but that's just across Central. Especially our 11 o'clock service, we see a lot of new families. And it's been really cool to hear the stories of people coming to Central because they have heard of our kids and student ministries. And so just connecting with families in the last year, I've probably had more families I've connected with that are saying, hey, we're getting plugged in for the very first time at Central because we really want our kids to be involved. So that's kind of been a highlight for me because I've had more of those conversations in the last year than I've had in the previous years, which is awesome. Yeah,
I think post-COVID, families want to get their kids involved with more stuff. And it's like, I'm going off on a small tangent just for a couple minutes. I don't want to repeat something that maybe we knew as a negative prior to COVID was over exerting our families with busyness. I have a feeling we're going back into that.
Yeah.
So that's the negative side of that, and I pray that that's not going to be. I hope we choose godly things and we hear what God is calling us into, and not just feel like we have to get involved in anything. But the positive side of that, I should have led with the positive, is that you have families that want to get their kids invested in church again, and knew because of the lack of that throughout COVID, those kids didn't have that relational component, and church provides that, a godly relational component in kids' lives that they don't get anymore.
Yeah. And it's been interesting to see how even the WSIL ministry has affected even kids ministry, because I have a lot of parents who have watched online and then they see, hey, there's this resource on site for my kids. And so it's just been really cool to have those conversations with families that are coming for the first time and really wanting their kids to be involved.
Yeah, that's one thing I hope our communications, Ashton, will help with, is just kind of let people know on the outside, promotional marketing, that sounds weird in the church, but what your guys' areas actually look like on the weekends. Because I think that's kind of an abstract idea, or if it's not an abstract idea, they maybe have some old notions of maybe old church or small church of what that is. But I feel like if they knew even more, that's why it's unbelievable that just with that WSIL highlight, that they're able to know that, hey, this is a church that it really pursues families. I got to get involved with that with my kids. So I feel like if we highlighted that more, I'm just excited to see what God can do with that.
Yeah, it was cool to see, like I said, so many new families, but it was interesting when we have events like Fantastic Nights, when we had that this year. Yeah. I was getting more emails this year about asking what is Fantastic Nights than I've had in the last 3. And it was just interesting to me how many people did not know what that was because they were brand new to Central. And so it was kind of like, oh, wow, there is a lot of people that are coming that didn't even know what this event is. Yeah. So that's just,
now we get to tell them what Jingle Jam is.
Jingle Jam.
That's the question now. That might be your next one. So second question that we'll entertain with the 3 of you. Challenges. What are some things, maybe even maybe you could morph that into maybe a surprise that you didn't, now going into year 10, that you didn't know at year 10 you'd be experiencing, or maybe just challenges? Because I think we know the obvious one in the room is volunteer shortage.
100%. Yeah.
So I don't want to put that in your mouth, but go ahead with that if you need to.
Yeah, that's for sure our biggest challenge is just finding people to be consistent, because all of us can tell you how important it is to have adults in the church investing into the lives of the kids. And so just having people consistently doing that has been a challenge. The other thing that's been interesting is just kids are experiencing some really, really difficult things. And so that has been, there's just a lot of opportunities for deep conversations. There's a lot of opportunity for just helping kids navigate through some traumatic experiences. And so just being better equipped for that and just finding the right people to be equipped for that has been a little bit of a challenge, but we can get there.
Yeah. So. It just doesn't feel like kids can be kids anymore.
Right. There's a lot of pressure on kids.
Grow up
and
faster.
Just a lot of experiences. They're exposed to a lot of different situations and a lot of different things. And so, it's just been tricky to navigate.
I was reading, this is another tangent. I'm reading a Tom Brokaw book. Yeah, I'm 37 years old and I'm reading a Tom Brokaw book. But he was just talking about that generation that came out of the 30s and how those kids couldn't be kids. They had to be adults so quickly because they had to help. Now, physically, our kids aren't manually doing labor, but I think very reminiscent of those kids in the 30s, they had to grow up fast. Our kids have to grow up fast just because of the culture we're in now and the things that they're exposed to.
Yeah.
So, okay, good one. What's next in Kid Depot, Phoebe Ile?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but just as we grow, I just have had a dream for the last couple of years of really investing in special needs ministry and being better equipped to serve and minister to special needs families. And so that's the dream. That's the goal. As soon as we can kind of get a better handle on just how many kids we're serving per weekend, we hope that the thing that we can invest in next is really ministering to families with kids with special needs.
Do you think there's a lot of parents with kids with special needs that either A, don't bring their kids because they know the challenges that maybe bringing the special need kids to a big church is, or 2, maybe you do see them in big church sometimes and they just stay with them in big church and they don't get involved with the student and kids ministries?
I definitely think parents are concerned or just curious on whether you have a ministry that is equipped to be able to best minister to their child. Yeah. And I've fielded a lot of questions over the last couple of years of just, hey, I have a child that experiences this, and would you feel like that is something that you could handle? Would you be willing? Lots of things like that. So we just want to make sure that across the board, we are able to best minister to every kid that comes in the building.
Yeah. Anything else you got for us? Because this is your chance. Because you have the weekend, and you might be saving some stuff for the weekend. But for the Central Weekly, anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Okay, that's a good thing because then it gives maybe some more meat on the bone for us too. Okay, so Elisha Smith, tell us a little bit about you, family, just, some of that things before we get into the ministry stuff.
Okay. Hey, yeah, my name's Elisha. And as you mentioned earlier, Jared, myself, Phoebe, and Pacey, all of us were basically raised in the church here at Central. I've been attending Central really since I was born. Came up through the different ministry areas here, volunteered here. Actually started volunteering in high school ministry whenever I was a college student.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I was a volunteer and then got my elementary education degree, taught in the school systems for a year before I decided what I really wanted to do was, yes, teach, but teach the Word of God to students in this type of setting within the church. And so when a position came open for middle school pastor, I interviewed, I was hired. That was 10 years ago. Wow. So I've been in the middle school pastor position for 10 years. Yeah. Here at Central, and love it. Love the kids that I get to work with. Personal side of things. I have a husband. We've been married 3 years.
I was there. It was good. It was a good
yes.
wedding.
Yeah. I had to think about it for a second. It's like, how long? Oh, it's just been 3 years. 3 years. And we have a stepdaughter. My stepdaughter lives with us as well. And she's 18. So, and on top of that, we have 4 cats. So, and if you know me, you already knew that I had cats because I talk about them a lot. So
the names of your 4 cats are?
Oh, goodness. Well, most of them, 3 out of the 4 start with M's. So that I should be able to remember their names. Milo, Mario, Marshmallow, and then the outlier is Whiskers.
Whiskers.
Yeah. He's the 20-pound Garfield cat.
Do you still have a 3-legged cat? Was that
No,
Mike's cat?
sadly she passed. Yeah.
Yeah. Make a deceased pet. I'm sorry. We're gonna keep going
There
with
was
pets over here.
5 cats and now there's 4. But so that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Here's the question that I got. Give us a shout out to some of your Sunday school people that you grew up with. Can you remember any names that maybe they're still going to Central that we would know?
Okay, you mean classmates, people that would have been
people that were your teachers.
Oh, teachers. Yeah. So Karen Newell attends the 8 a.m. service, I believe. Laura Switzer, who is a consistent Friday night attender, I believe. I know she was a Sunday school teacher. Susan Wilson, pretty sure. She taught me at one point, I think maybe a junior high class. So there are several that are still attending here that have invested in people like
Phoebe,
me.
Pacey, jump in there. Who do you got? Pacey, you might still, those people are still serving.
Yeah, those people are still actively serving. I always used to say,
Shelley McDowell.
well, first, when Trevor was youth pastor, I used to say my favorite youth pastor, my youth pastor. Then I just started saying youth pastor Hall of Fame since he's been retired.
Yeah.
So.
He's retired.
He's kind of put his hat on. Yeah. What do you got, Phoebe?
I don't necessarily, they didn't teach me, but just people who still volunteer in Kid Depot. That's what I was thinking about, of people who still serve in Kid Depot that have served for 20 plus years. Marietta Lamberson.
Oh, yeah. Hall of Fame right there, too.
Kathy Olson. She has served a really long time.
Yeah,
there are several.
If your heart's in it, you're not out till you're dead.
Yeah,
So,
Marietta has served in Kid Depot specifically, I'm pretty sure, for 40 years.
Did you have Marietta at all?
Oh,
Alicia?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, all of my girls.
And she has served in the pre-K ages the entire time.
Yeah, that's just, we need to get her on the podcast.
Yeah.
She can
She's
share some
awesome.
stories. Okay, back to Elisha, back to middle school. Some highlights over the last year, some stories that you want to share, just some those uplifting, like, hey, these are things, when my ministry's done years from now, these are the things that I'll remember.
Well, wow, that's a loaded question. Well, I'll just give an example of something new, I guess, or new-ish to Central's middle school. Is that two years now, 2 summers in a row, we've started attending a conference in the summer called CIY Mix. Christ and Youth CIY has been around a long time. Central has partnered with them for a long time, but specifically, we had not partnered with them in the mixed trip, which is the middle school week-long summer conference. We had not done that. Central had participated in the high school one for years, but we just decided to give it a try.
It's relatively new, right?
It's relatively
You got
new.
in in like year 1 or 2?
Yeah, we didn't jump in on their first year.
Yeah,
for
they're
sure.
in year 3 or 4, so we're pretty early to the.
Yeah, but we tried it. I guess that would have been the summer of 2022, and it went really well. So we jumped back in and went again this summer. So it was our second summer taking that trip, and I think that even though it's relatively new, already starting to see the impact that it can have and will have for the future, if that's something we hopefully continue to partner and do, because it's just, I mean, if you've ever attended anything that CIY has done, it's just really well programmed, well thought out, explaining the gospel in a tangible, real way that is on level of a middle schooler's brain. Tons of fun, tons of games, activities, movements, things to help them get out all their energy, but also really super impactful teaching, teachable moments squeezed in that week as well. So that's something that's newish, that's I think been super impactful in middle school ministry and probably will continue to be.
I always like to say this too. Our kids are spoiled because they get a CIY type, and I mean move and mix type experiences every weekend at Central. Because if you guys, you're is the word nagmatic leaders? Nah, I'm not even gonna try that. You're great leaders, and I think you guys do such a good job of not only giving them what the Bible says to them, but on their level. And in a great atmosphere, we bring in the group settings on a weekly basis. So I always think our kids are a little spoiled because some of those smaller churches, that is a huge deal to go to CIY. But also, here's something I'm super excited about. The next couple of years, having kids that did 2 to 3 years of mix going into move.
That'll be interesting.
That's going to be, because it's like there's a foundation, more of a foundation going into CIY. So it's maybe like where we saw a lot of foundational moments for high schoolers in CIY or move. You know, maybe those are already happened, and now they're coming into what are those next steps? What are they building on to that? So that's, I think, where we get more kingdom workers using a CIY.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So Elisha, challenges. Take us down that road a little bit. Challenges that you've seen middle schoolers with.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you all know, everyone in this room, we've been through middle school ourselves. So
I peaked in middle school.
We kind of, you know, I mean, we've been there, done that, right? Some of us longer ago than others, but still, we remember how challenging it can be to be an adolescent, to be someone who is experiencing for the first time hormonal changes, physical changes in their body that greatly impacts things like their self-image, the way they view themselves, their self-worth. I mean, insecurity is a huge thing, identity. You know, they're at an age in middle school, especially, where they're developing their own personality and learning their likes and their dislikes and their interests, and all of that becomes another piece in the puzzle of who they are that they're trying to piece together. And fortunately, unfortunately, however you look at it, I guess they also have other puzzle pieces being thrown at them
more than ever
from outside of themselves, telling them who they are. Labels that get put on them from social media. You know, stuff happens. Online bullying is a thing. It's a real thing. And they have, you know, messages being sent at them from commercials on TV telling them you're supposed to look a certain way or be a certain way. And all of that plays a role in the mind of, you know, anyone, but especially I think an adolescent who is just for the first time trying to answer the question, who am I? That can be a huge challenge to try to navigate for them, you know, what their identity is. So for me, I think a challenge has always been in middle school ministry, kind of learning how to compete with culture. And I don't know if that's a good way of phrasing it.
No, for sure.
But you are, in a sense. I mean, you're competing with culture in that you're sending a message to these students that is almost a complete opposite of what they're hearing in their day-to-day life, you know, because I mean, they're hearing things like, well, if you mess up, you're a failure, or, you know, labels that bullies, names that they have been called and things like that. But when you look at what scripture says, the message we're sending is that like, you are a child of God, you are forgiven, you are loved. God is a God who is a God of grace and is giving you this second chance and this new name that is offered to you. And so you are, in a sense, you're competing with culture, and that can be a challenge because obviously the voices that they're hearing are so loud and so strong that it's our job to do the best we can to magnify the voice of Christ in their life and to make his voice loud. And so that's something that I think is always going to be a challenge probably because, the messages from culture are not going away, but it's just our job and our responsibility to make sure that as leaders that we're making his voice loud in their ears and in their life.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this. Middle school is probably the most pivotal shaping years, where that's why I think it's so important. Again, we're kind of talking foundational stuff here, but where they need to be in church and in a thriving ministry, because that's when they're shaping their identity the most. That's when they're shaping their personality the most. Now, high school, I feel like you're doing more hospital work. You're correcting what
it's very
things that have been
much.
developed
I actually was
already.
thinking about how she's talking this weekend how like identity is the big name of the game in middle school, and then high school. Middle school is like, who am I? And then high school is kind of like, what do I belong to?
Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of like a child like starts understanding all the things it can do, and then decides, well, I want to do this and that. They start thinking of freedom. They spend 12 plus hours a day sometimes at school, so they are just never at home. Which parents listen to this, I'm sure, can like testify to. But that's just, I think it's, who am I? And then, what do I want to be identified with? What do I want to, that kind of stuff. So,
because I think that's when they're more, the independence is coming there.
Absolutely.
So they're able to choose what they want now for the first time. Usually it was the parents, up until then.
Yeah.
Future, what's next in middle school? I'll let Phoebe up. Pointing at you and saying Phoebe.
That's Pacey.
I'm sorry. Nobody can see this, but I pointed at Pacey and I said
they didn't have to know until you brought it up.
I wanted them to know. Okay, I'll let Pacey kind of develop a little bit the thoughts if nobody knew yet the Ignite and Fusion rename.
That would be
but go
great.
ahead, you tell us what you think about Future and what's next.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, the method in which you teach the gospel of Jesus Christ may change, but the message does not. And so when I think about what's next in middle school, honestly, just continue to preach the word of Christ.
Yeah.
Preach the gospel in a way that, now the way that you preach it may have to change. That's something I think I've learned in the past 10 years that, the traditional method of standing on stage with a microphone with zero props or zero visuals or zero interactive elements, just the traditional speaking sermon is probably not the most effective way to reach a student. And so I'm grateful that, now, this has been several years now, that we have on Sunday mornings incorporated, yes, we have our whole group worship time, but we also have small groups where students are learning from one another and they're learning in a facilitated discussion type of setting. I think the more interactive you can be, in your teaching methods is just going to be able to reach not only that age group, but just the different ranges of learning styles. But honestly, the message, though, doesn't need to change. Just continue to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and who he is and what he's done for them.
Something that kind of changed for you this fall was didn't have the opportunity to hit up a fall retreat. So tell us a little bit about what you did instead, and I think how effective that was.
It was fun. Yeah, we did what we called Fall Fun Days, which was a series of events we did this fall. And it was honestly a more simple, laid-back approach, but we had one event on the calendar where we took a field trip. We went to a local apple orchard and had fun. There was a petting zoo, all the things. It was just a day trip. It was super fun. But then we also had a really special event, which is probably my favorite event of our Fall Fun Days series, was here on campus. We had a bonfire worship night. So campfire worship. And it was, literally as it sounds, there was a campfire and there was worship. And we had kids, roasting marshmallows and making s'mores and hanging out. But it was a different atmosphere for a worship night, being just acoustic guitar around the fire. And that was just really special and kind of intimate, different type of setting that the kids got to experience. And I think sometimes we forget that there's beauty in the simple things. And it can be really challenging, or really tempting, I should say, really tempting, I think, in youth ministry to try to plan big events. And not to say that those aren't important or effective, they are, but that sometimes we become too fixated on what's my next big event and how can I hype it up. And sometimes we forget about, like, honestly, just the simple moments are just as important and just as needed. So
I think that's
it was
one
fun.
of our challenges as a church, as large as we are, and how many schools and geographical locations come in and we're meshed in together with these youth groups. And that's why I think it's important for us to have just hangout times where they can realize I can have church friends, because a lot of times they've got their school friends, but they can't, when they come together at church, they don't know how to interact with each other because they don't know each other on the weekends or on the weekdays. So I think that's important to bring them together. So then when you do have pivotal faith moments, that there's I'm going to use the word foundation again. There's a foundation there that they can talk and they feel comfortable with one another. So, Elisha, you got anything else for us?
I don't think so.
Anything else on those notes that you brought?
I literally have my notepad sitting next to me, but I take it everywhere. No, I think that's it.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's just shout out to you guys, and hope maybe in a couple of years. Well, I don't know. I'm going to Carbondale. So, anyways, just how awesome you guys do in Kid Depot and in middle school. I know our kids, and it's funny because the twins have moved up to kindergarten.
Yeah.
They're still getting ready for that.
It's a big jump.
It is a big jump, but it's just neat to see again now these generations with my kids specifically, the 5 of them now see Everly and Amelia thrive in middle school. And I think she does that because you create such a great atmosphere where kids can thrive in their faith. So
yeah, it's cool to see how like one area affects the next.
Yeah.
So when you see kids move from Kid Depot to middle school to high school, you see how each of those areas was foundational. There's that word again.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. The new guy on the block.
That's me.
Pacey Reynolds. This is where it's critical. Tell us a little bit about you and that family of yours, and of course that little white dog.
Yeah. So my family consists of me, Pacey, my wife, Savannah, and our little very mean dog, Duke.
What kind of dog is he again?
A Shih Tzu poodle.
Oh, good.
I don't know. I don't know. We had to. Yeah, he's
How did he
mean.
come in
There's
your
no
life?
way. Savannah's dog, and when we started dating, he would throw up on me on purpose. He would go drink a bunch of water, throw up in my lap, and I was like, so this is intentional. Like the third time, I was like, he does not like me, and now we're best buds. There's not a dog I've ever been around that likes me more. He
Are you guys
sleeps
more
on my feet
affectionate than him and Savannah?
affectionate.
No, I mean, like,
We didn't have to go there.
Does Duke like you more than he likes
Duke
Savannah?
still likes
that's a
Savannah.
better way to say it.
Duke definitely still likes Savannah more than me, but I'm more laid back and nicer at the end of the
buddy.
day.
You're the
Yeah,
buddy.
I'm the buddy. I'm the cool guy.
So
Cool new
Pacey,
guy.
tell us too a bit about because this is your first year
This
in the
is.
ministry. You start
Yeah,
when?
yeah, altogether there's 20 years at this table, and then there's me.
Started in June.
But yeah, I started in June. I had been around the high school area for 3 years before that, volunteering, helping out with events, all
Central
things.
resident.
Yes, resident, homegrown. I went to really the first time I've ever been to church was when our high school service was called Fusion. I went back then when
We'll get into that.
Trevor Ile was the high school pastor. I went then and talk about putting up with a kid and loving on him for 4 years. That's pretty much what they did with me.
That's the truth.
And because of it, I was in college and I was just like, man, I don't want to go down this just path of life and just stereotypical everyone else. Like my life's meant for something more, and just like God had my heart and changed it all around. And it kind of drew back to all the moments in youth ministry and just all of the times I thought I felt the most love and seen and known and had identity and knew where I belonged was all resulting back to there. And so now looking back on it, I won't get too much more into it because we don't need to get emotional. John's not here.
You're literally about to make me cry.
But
here's the thing.
but
Phoebe,
it was
Phoebe more than me got to see your transformation.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Savannah's.
Yeah.
She really just saw probably more of the back end. The front end was pretty brutal.
Okay,
but
there was a CIY.
there's going to be people in this church this weekend like, that guy works here now?
No,
I had him in high school.
Yes, I guarantee that will happen. But here's the thing. The Pacey that I'm going to be straight up on the podcast. The Pacey that I knew.
Nobody's listening at this point anyways. They gave
probably
up.
not. It's the end of it.
No.
Now they'll be really sad that they missed it. The Pacey I knew at CIY as probably a sophomore, I did not like you.
No.
I did not.
No,
I thought this
I believe
kid
it.
is obnoxious. Here's the sad thing. You reminded me a lot of me at that age, and I knew that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
But again, to see the transformation that has taken place in your heart and has now transformed others now is such a cool thing, and it's only because of Jesus Christ.
That's why it literally makes me
That's
emotional
nuts.
when you listening to you talk about your story, because when you have seen like when you watch these kids grow up and then become pastors and become such pivotal people for the church, it's like, wow, that's just so cool.
It's like the kid, like that kid will never cry or tell me his real problems, and then there I was sitting in offices telling
now
pastors,
friend and
Yeah.
coworker.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cool. It's awesome.
So highlights, stories already so far.
Man,
what's it like being new and then kind of formulating that?
Yeah, I would say I was actually talking to Pastor here today. I think the honeymoon phase is over, but not in a bad sense. I think it's just like, okay, summer trips are done, feet are underneath us. This is the nitty and gritty part of the year for high school students. There's, let's just be honest. There's drama, there's gossip, there's people dating, there's people breaking up, there's all the things. I hope my students listen to this and know that I'm not blind, you know what I mean? Like, I'm aware of life happening. I was in high school at one point. And so like right now is really the part of the year where I have to be, and really I think all of us could agree, their 20 years combined could attest to, I have to realize we always have to be changing. And so I cannot be setting things up right now that can never be changed. And really I'm trying to view all the new and exciting things we're doing is, how can this change? How can this adapt? What does this need to be this year? What does it need to be next year? And the new and exciting things are all happening. Lots of great students. I mean, I love my students. They are really, I think, building up to change the tide and change a lot of the culture for high school students around here. I think that sometimes there's bad rap that goes around just about, Christian high school kids, hypocrites, whatever. And then really just high school kids figuring out what it means to have faith and talk about it for the first time, right? All those things going on. The new and exciting things are evident. There's been baptisms, there's been life change, there's been students that are dealing with real things, and we're trying to help them walk through that and what that looks like in life. And it's just so cool, because that's the best part of the job. Like, that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, that's what my heart is really meant for. The events are great, CIYs are fun, but I knew coming into this that my heart always laid into the nitty gritty hardest parts of the year, because that's what you have to be geared for. And so it's super cool, because like one of the things I think I'm gonna talk about this weekend is I had this like prayer when I started that, like, God, I really hope that relationships would matter a whole lot more, because looking back on it, the people that invited me to dinners and took me out were like Eric Lide and Trevor Ile, and like just spent time with me, talked sports, goofed off, played hockey, whatever. Just did life with, was so much fun to just be around people that were just like very kind and generous and loving to me, and didn't care about all the things I'd ever done wrong. Reflected onto me. They made the relationship with me matter, and then were more intentional with it when they, saw that I cared, vice versa. And so like, that's just the cool part. Anyways, with all that to say, relationships matter. We talk about that all the time here. My prayer was that, God, I really hope for every, like, for example, I literally said, for every 20 baptisms, I hope I do one. Right now, we're after this baptism and bonfire event, I think we'll be at 13. I've only done one. And that has just a faithfulness of, there has been different leaders all over the place. And I know that their relationship with them is deeper than what I could offer to, this really new freshman girl. Her D group leader is probably going to see her through a lot of seasons of life more than me. And so her to have that relationship in the church, me have a relationship with her also, you know what I mean? Or them, or whoever it is also. But for them to have someone that is their, like, they call mom, text dad, and then text D group leader, text small group, high school small group leader, I think is just very meaningful, intentional, because we know and have all seen that's what makes the difference. And so that's what I really encourage my volunteers to do. That's been new and exciting because I'm just getting to have a front row to what God is doing in my students and in my ministry.
Yeah, that's what's cool. I mean, you mentioned the baptism and bonfires. It's kind of neat because it's reflective of what you guys experience just on a kind of a micro level with your middle school worship night outside. Because just something about fire, it just gets those emotions going. And it's neat to now we get to celebrate new life and baptism.
For
Hopefully
sure.
that waters a little bit. And you have 3 planned.
3 planned.
And that's cool.
And then we'll have a bunch there, so who knows?
And again,
you
we're
know?
recording this on a Thursday. So Sunday that's coming up, we have the most scheduled than we've ever had for a baptism event like this.
This could be out of pocket, but 18. I did say, what'd they say, 17th a meeting?
Yeah. 18 now.
I thought we got an email that said 20, but I turned around to someone, I said,
those are in the
I
morning.
said, let's imagine, imagine there's 40.
Yeah.
And someone said, no way. And I said, just imagine. And wouldn't that be nuts?
Cool.
That'd be crazy.
I'm just excited
It's still
because we
so
get to
cool.
celebrate groups. High school is going to be heavily involved because that's their night, and you're going to be your worship night.
Yeah, well, Central students will be down there, so it's going to be a great time.
Did I say Fusion? No.
No, you
You
didn't.
said high school. Good job.
I said Central students because
Yeah,
they'll be
'cause
down there.
So here's the thing, too. Let's talk about this name change a
Open
little
up the
bit.
cat out of the
Why
bag.
do we do it? Why do we switch from Ignite and Fusion? Because I
yeah.
think everybody's been talking about it for a while, but I think you were the guy that like, hey, let's do this. Let's get this
Yeah,
done.
it just makes sense with the way Central is moving. I told my students the way that God is growing in Central, there's nothing wrong with the names Fusion and Ignite.
No.
There's nothing against them. They were literally, as John has said about other things, they were great for the time and the season they were in. They were common, like, we're going to Fusion, we're going to Ignite, whatever. But like just the way the culture has been, everyone is about building a brand, and we don't have a brand. We're the church. And so like getting the heart is getting them all to understand you are a part of what is going on at Central. You're not like, and Kid Depot will say like there's no junior Holy Spirit. Like you're not JV church. Like you're the next church, and you're a part of what God is doing now and is going to continue to do. And I know that there are students now that, we've had, I probably have 7 students who want to go into ministry. I think,
See, that's
which is
what I mean. That's
which
big
is,
deal.
I've had literal conversations. I'm really interested in going into ministry, and it's lingering around. But once he puts that in your heart, just like me, you can try to run away from it, but it's not going to happen. So, it's just super cool because that's not
legit. Yeah.
the next church. That is the church right now. Yep. Like they're in the next however many years. Who would have literally thought when I was a senior that me, Nick Malone, Chapel Davis, and Kyle Bohr would all be in ministry?
Yeah,
Because
and that's
people would have probably said Kyle, and that would have been about it. But now it's all of us,
And that's the cool.
And it's just
you were
awesome.
you were the first Central resident to have a job at Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then here comes Chapel right along, going to Carbondale.
Going to Carbondale.
And
It's crazy.
I don't know if Nick's got something coming. They're percolating. I don't know. But then Kyle doing something. He just preached at his church in Fairfield.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And on the big side, but he's doing great things in their student ministries. And again, that's just evidence of
Fruit of
the
fruit of
just
the
producing.
relationships.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I think
it truly is, because when you look back, it's like obviously the Lord calls you to do and anoints you to do specific roles and specific things. And so he plants that seed. But when you have someone in the church that you're looking at and you think, I think the Lord is asking me to do what they're doing,
Yeah.
and I trust the way that they did it, it makes a difference. When you can look at your high school leaders and your Kid Depot leaders and your middle school leaders, and you can say, I think I have a call to ministry, and I can look at these leaders and I trust the way that they did it. I see the way that they did it.
They want to be like them
and it's
because they were
honorable.
patient
Yes.
and kind and loving. They were the
Yes.
exact
And
opposite of what the
matters.
world
I think
was.
It
that's
matters.
a really good point to make right now is you guys, you're here on the podcast, but you're only here because of you're on the, I don't want to say the backs of the leaders, but you're only doing what you can do successful because you've got great leaders in staff.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
And it's like you guys are almost the shepherds of shepherds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
And
it's
your
a-
best leaders are the ones that are secure enough with letting other people lead.
yeah,
And being able to have an understanding, like Pacey said, that kids are going to make relationships with different people, and that's important. And so to be able to lead people well, you have to be secure enough to say, I don't have to be the person that has the best relationship with this kid, but I still am finding an adult that can do that.
Right.
So.
And then back to the name change talk, that poses us for future growth in church,
Absolutely.
in other churches. With Carbondale, we don't have to, say Fusion and
Yeah.
Ignite if those are things that we're able to do. Hopefully,
Right,
Lord's
'cause,
willing.
right,
Because it's just you have to explain that, and now
Right,
people
and
know
s-
what high school, middle school.
And so we're clear, it's just like we're just calling it what it is. Our Central students are our middle school students, and our high school students are middle school. has a lot to offer on Sunday mornings with a Bible study at 9:15, a service at 11. Our high school service takes place Sunday nights, followed by some groups.
And where does that all happen?
It all happens in the Student Worship Center, which is basically the old church building facing off of 37.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Any that's kind of the future. Did we talk challenges? I think we kind of did. What else you got for me?
Did. Challenges.
Go to the end.
Challenges with high school students is, I mean, like, yeah. The challenge is never with them. It's always with, I mean, like, I love my adult volunteers and even myself, but sometimes I'm too hard on myself and need to give myself a break or them a break, that they're high school students. Like, they want to find out the wrong way to do it. Because I did. I know that. Like, it's like,
It's a lot of
my
course
mom
correcting.
always used to
I
tell
think
me.
more this side of the room did the bad. I don't know if this side.
Yeah.
Of the room did.
The
The
I was
boys are
a
on this
rule
side.
follower.
Pacey failed. But like my mom always used to tell me growing up, Pacey, you always want to find things out the hard way. So I understand when students want to do that because they think that's the only way to do it. You know better than anybody. I have a way I get set in it, and it's the way I want to do it because I think it's the new best way to do it. And students think, oh, this is the new best way to do it, whatever. It's just they're trying to figure out decision making for the first time. That is the biggest challenge for them. Is literally a lot of times their stomach hurts. They're got some little anxiety built up. They don't know what to do because they have to make a decision, and that's the biggest challenge. And so for me, it's not giving them the answer because I'm not always going to be there for them.
Yeah.
It's getting them to a point where they trust God.
Yeah.
And sometimes put the stomach down, quiet the mind, listen to not just, listen to your heart, go with your gut. We talked about that a few weeks ago with them, like trust God, be in communication with him. Have you even prayed yet? You know, like let's open up that a little bit. Like let's walk through that.
And that's really, it's just got to be the influence of sin in our world that why specifically middle schoolers and high schoolers can't learn from somebody else in the life situations that they are trying to tell you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I was the same way. It's like I am now experiencing things from being a parent and adult that I remember my parents telling me I should have learned from then.
Yep.
But I just thought, no, I won't do that, or you're just old and you don't know what you're talking about. Like, they did know what they're talking about. They were trying to influence me. Why couldn't I just shut up and listen? And there's got to be sin and influence in the world because it's as much as you could create a big environment, you could nurture them with relationships. There is still going to be that wanting to rebel and figure it out on their own. And it's just we just got to be there when they make that mistake, and we can pick them off the ground and say, "Hey, Jesus picked me off the ground. He can do it for you too."
The atmosphere we provide for them on all of our levels is the most important. Just the loving them, caring for them, whether they're back for the first time in months, haven't seen them in a while. They're back. They're there. We missed you. We love you.
And I think it's super important too. I was going to make this point. Be inviting to these things for kids. I had, I think I say it on the podcast a lot. I drive a high school bus. But like I had a girl that's really great. She's one of the few that looks in the eye, few I can have a conversation with because it ain't happening that much in those generations right now. But she came up to me and she said, "Hey, Mr. C." Again, they call me Mr. C. Long story. I'll keep it short. But she said, "Hey, how do I come to your church? Do I need to bring anything?" I was like, "What do you mean? What do you need to bring?" She goes like, "Do I have to bring a card or anything?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like at first I was like going to demolish her. Like, what are you talking about? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
The subscription generation.
But seriously, the honesty and wanting to know was there. And I think it is there with kids. I think they're hungry for something different. I think even if they're new at this and they're in the middle school phase, I think by high school, they're understanding there are things that aren't working in this world. And I'm tired of trying to make them work.
Yeah.
The church is
I don't need to,
I think they're hungry
we don't
for.
need to they're at the point I don't need to over-explain the world to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't need to tell them the world's not great because some of them are figuring that out the hard way. And like just like I did, like they just, some things could be really good and then they're just ultimately not what you need. And so it's just I don't know. What's next is them. They're next, and I'm excited for them. I love getting a front row to them. That's what I'll say. I said from stage, so it'll be. I'm really excited to see what God does in them.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think this weekend is just a highlight of what God's doing. It was neat to see the students, in worship with us, and Lane and Amelia leading, and then you got your high school girls. Bailey Was it Bailey? Yeah, Bailey and
Chloe.
that were on stage too. Which is, again, it's neat to be led by them in worship, because that's what I was telling all my girls. I was like, hey, you're not just worshiping, and it's not just you. You're leading worship when you're on stage. And I think that's just, again, the full circle moments that you got here on the podcast. You got this weekend, hopefully in Jesus' name, coming up on Family Worship Weekend. And I just now see this literally in the staff now.
Yeah, just the heart of Central students. They are central. They are part. I mean, my high school students, ton of them volunteer for Phoebe.
Yep.
I know they help lead the way on a lot of that stuff, and that is just speaks volumes to me that some of them are clicking on that level. Like, oh, I need to go help out in this area because some of these parents need a break from their kids so they can go worship separately. Like some adults don't understand that. You know what I mean? So that's so powerful for me to get to see that at that level. So it's dope.
And I think more than ever that I've been here, it's more connected. It's not, hey, this is the high school ministry, this is the middle school ministry, and then you have big church, or you have Kid Depot. Yeah. It's more one than ever that I've seen.
Big church is like that's like the last thing we need to get rid of.
We need to stop saying big church.
You guys want to go to big church?
Thank you. You're right.
Yeah, that one. Let's put that on the list of things that need to die.
So that's it for the Central Week. Let me give you a recap too. Kid Depot meets on Fridays at 6 p.m. and that is all of Kid Depot. That is birth to 5th grade.
Yes.
And then middle school meets at 9:15 for the Bible study. 11 o'clock in their worship in the student ministry center. On Sunday
mornings.
High school, they meet at 6 p.m. on Sunday nights in the worship center, the student worship center, with afterwards groups, just groups, no D groups anymore.
Kid Depot's also on Sundays.
Groups.
Did I say that?
We said just Fridays.
I just did say Fridays.
Sundays 9:15 and 11 as well.
I think people know that. We've made that up. Well, thanks a lot for sitting in and taking the time to reveal a little bit about your heart for what's going on. I think it makes a difference for people to know who's their shepherds of shepherds. Get it?
Yeah.
Just call you. Okay, that's the name of the episode. Shepherd of Shepherds. It sounds weird. It sounds like Shepherd on the Hills. Have you Branson? Yeah. Okay. No. I'm off on a tangent. I'll let you guys go. You have things to do. Thanks, guys. Episode 88 in the books.
Bye.